morning, gentlemen. Wonderful, nice, sunny day. And let's have another talk. This time I'm going to discuss something around the United States. There's an old saying in Greek mythology that those whom the gods wish to destroy, they make them mad. Somehow I have a feeling that Joe Biden fits this description. Why do I say that? Because the Americans are escalating the conflict at every stage, and I do not know what is in their mind. Maybe the idea is to annihilate Russia for the next 100 years. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. Now, the latest news which I've got is that the 101st Airborne Division of the US, after 80 years, has been deployed in Europe. It is their airborne armored division. And why have they deployed it? Because the Russians have occupied 20% of the territory of Ukraine, and they are mounting an offensive and bombarding the entire Ukraine with rockets, missiles, and drones. Many of them supplied by Iran, which is, of course, a sworn enemy of the United States. And that is the Americans' own doing. It's not Iran's doing. I'll go into the details of that a little later, but now discussing Ukraine as it is and the American response. They are giving artillery, they are sending advisors there, they are giving them the HIMARS, they are giving them artillery, you name it, they are giving them millions of dollars worth of weapons, free, gratis. And who's paying for it? The American public. America is thinking that the European countries also must join with them, France, Germany, England, and so they can annihilate Russia. It's not going to happen because Putin has carried out his nuclear drills and he's made it amply clear that in case Russia is threatened with destruction, he will have no hesitation but to press the nuclear button. If you remember, in 1950, when MacArthur's army was being defeated by the Chinese in the second counteroffensive launched, he was in a state of panic and he went to Truman and told him, let's drop atomic bombs on China, or at least on the Yalu River, the border between China and Korea. Truman initially agreed, but the British Prime Minister was not in favor and he advised against it and the proposal was finished off and MacArthur was dismissed. But looks like there's no general in the US Army who can stand up to what Biden is doing. Or maybe the generals are thinking there's about time we got some glory because they've been defeated in every war till now. Whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Korea, whether anywhere you name the place, The Americans have always been defeated and the generals like from Westmoreland, Ridgeway, all you name them, they achieved nothing, zero. So probably these generals are thinking it's about time we recouped our prestige. It's just my way of thinking, but at the back of the mind, this is what is happening. And not something good for as far as America is concerned, because it's the innocent civilians who are going to suffer. As I said earlier, what's written in the Bible could come to be proved true. Armageddon, the last battle between good and evil. And this is what probably is heading for it. And we must thank Mr. Joe Biden for it. But there are flaws in the reasoning. And that reasoning of Joe Biden is that the European Union, at least the major NATO powers, they are not on the same frequency as the Americans. The French are agitating day in and day out that they want to leave NATO. They want to do anything with it. Germans also. Italians have got a right-wing regime which is favorably disposed towards Russia. The only countries which are supporting America are the small peripheral states like Poland, Bulgaria, which were earlier part of the Russian sphere of influence. And these are of no consequence. So the only thing they can do is to write piggyback on the Americans, keep on pumping air into them, and the Americans thinking we are doing a great job. You people more weapons, this thing, that thing. And what is the result? Result is Ukraine is destroyed. Not for the next 50 years. But Americans are not bothered about it. Let's be very clear. They're not bothered whether Ukraine is destroyed, not destroyed. They just want to keep the pot boiling, their arms industry running, and to try and finish off Russia. It's not easy. Russia has got the backing of China, and India also has not condemned Russia because we have a strong lifeline with Russia for the last 50, 60 years. There was a time when the Americans refused to give them the Indians, the latest weaponry and give weapons like patent tank and the F-10 Starfighter to Pakistan, refused to India. And India had no choice but to go in for Russian weaponry. And Nikita Khrushchev, that time the first secretary of the Soviet Communist Party, agreed. And the MiG began to be made in India. And it has proved its worth. Now the situation in Ukraine is a pot boiler. There's a battle on in Kherson. And the Ukrainians claim they are moving forward. The Russians are fighting. But it's anybody's game. And what if the Ukrainians do take Kherson? Do you think they'll be able to drive right up to the border, drive the Russians out of Ukraine? I don't think so. The Americans are hoping they do it, and they are hoping that they can send some of their troops disguised as Ukrainians into Ukraine to fight the Russians. They tried these tactics earlier also in Vietnam, and they got a bloody nose. Americans should not forget that 3,000 troops which they have now sent across into Europe cannot win a war. Let me give you figures. At the height of the fight in Vietnam, the Americans had 540,000 soldiers in Vietnam, helicopters, and at the same time they're carrying out a massive bombing of North Vietnam with the B-52 bombers. What was the net result? Nothing. Zero, a big zero. And I'm very clear the same thing is going to happen here. Zelensky is going to be on the run very shortly. I'm pretty certain about it. He himself doesn't know what's happening because the entire decisions are being taken by Biden in Washington. And Biden, even the Americans are saying, has got a congenital problem. I mean, he's senile, he's old. When a man becomes old, he becomes senile. Not everybody. We have people like Dr. Mahathir, who was the Prime Minister of Malaysia, and he's 95 years old, fit as a fiddle. The Indian leader, Lal Krishna Advani, over 90 is fit. But Biden doesn't appear. He seems to be losing his sense of equanimity. And it's for the good of the Americans that they realize what's happening. There's inflation in America, prices going up, and Donald Trump is breathing fire. I think he was the best American president for a long, long time. The only man who kept Putin and the North Korean dictator Kim under check. He did it. He was a diplomat. Not only that, he brought peace between the Arabs and the Israelis with the Abraham Accord. He would have got the Nobel Prize for it. But the Nobel Prize, as you all know, is a political gimmick. You want to give it to here and you give it to Mr. Obama. What did Obama do? Nothing. But he got the Nobel Peace Prize. And the man who really did something like Trump, he gets nothing because the European Union can't tolerate that a man should be friendly with Putin. So there are wheels between wheels. But that's all past. What we are bothered now is the future. And the future is the world is heading for Armageddon. And that is the destruction of America. I have no doubt about it. I don't know whether Biden realizes. He must be thinking he's a great king, sending an airborne division into Europe and he's going to win the battle. It's not going to be that easy. Americans may, if they press the trigger, have 50 of their top cities destroyed or obliterated. Russians will also get destroyed. It will be the destruction of civilization, the Armageddon, leaving the East to come up. The Americans must think there is no point in fighting for Ukraine. But who's going to tell the truth to the Americans? And how will Joe Biden listen? He won't going to listen to anything. He's got in his mind, he keeps talking all nonsense. He once referred to Putin as a terrorist. Then there's another American who referred to Putin as a murderer. You don't make such statements against the head of state. Americans have killed more people than anybody else. Remember Allende? Shot dead by the CIA. Che Guevara? Shot dead at the instigation of the CIA. So many assassination attempts by the CIA. And the Americans are guilty of having carried out a farcical trial of Saddam Hussein and hanging him. All that is okay, well, because it's done by the Americans. But we must remember that history is a leveler. And I think, as I said earlier, those who the gods wish to destroy, they make them mad. And that's precisely what's happening. Biden is losing his sense of equanimity, his sense of reasoning, and he's escalating the conflict. I hope, gentlemen, the war does not reach Armageddon and reason dawns. But 2024, for the next date of the American election, is still 2 years away, and anything could happen at that time. God save America. I close now, gentlemen, and wish you all the best. I hope everything turns out to be okay. And if you like this channel, do share it, like it, and subscribe. I'll be very thankful for it. I'll close now and say, Jai Hind. God bless you all.